what comes to mind. I see a full house of single-minded, loyal servants to Clark County, Washington.
Amen.
Thank you very much. You can continue eating, except for we're going to do a few things that you might pause for just a moment. And one is we're going to have an invocation, and this is on your program. You know, we're flexible tonight because of the snow, so your young lady that could do the offer to do the invocation is not here. So we're having her sidekick, Eileen Morgan, come on up. I bow down in prayer.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we enter your gates with thanksgiving and your gates with praise. You have heard the heart cries of your people as we sought your forgiveness and mercy for the sins of our land. We are trusting you to heal our land according to your promise. For all of this, we give praise, worship with our hearts, and overwhelmed with thanksgiving. We ask your blessings, favor, wisdom, and protection on our newly elected and re-elected Republican candidates in Clark County, for our new CCRW board, and for this meeting. And we also would like to thank you for the dinner that we have tonight. Now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think according to the power that works in us, be all the glory. God bless America. Amen.
Amen.
And next we have David Gala. He's the 2017 chairman of the Clark County Republican Party. He's going to lead us in the flag salute.
Everybody please stand up and place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
You know, I invite you to continue to eat, but if you would, try to focus not on your neighbors and conversation, but on what's going on up here. I know it's hard. When there's food and there's friends, there's chatting. So let's try to focus. I want to take a moment to thank some of our distinguished guests that are among us tonight. So if you'll just please stand as I call your name, and you can just give us a wave, all right? So first we're going to start with our elected officials. After all, we are a political party. We should notice and recognize and give thanks. So if Senator Linda Wilson here this evening? Couldn't make it. Okay. Well, you got to see her. Did you all watch the inauguration of the governor? He was at the podium, and she was right behind him the whole time. So that's awesome. State Representative from the 18th, the great 18th, Liz Pike. With us. We have with us Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey. Clark County Councilor District 1, Jeannie Stewart. Clark County Councilor District 2, Julie Olson. District 4, Eileen Quiring. Councilmember Dan Corsi. And Washougal City Councilmember Brent Boger. Where are you, Brent? Vancouver City Councilmember Bill Turley. Are you here, Bill? Anybody see Bill? Okay. Washington State Republican Party Chairman Susan Hutchison. Clark County Republican Party Chairman David Gala. Clark County Republican Party Vice Chairman Leslie Meharry. Clark County Republican Party State Committee member, Katia Delabar. I missed anybody? We might have, treasurer of the party. She has your heart. Thank you. Now, if we can pause for a moment and ask all of our active duty and veterans from the military, any branch, if you just stand up, we want to just say hello and say thank you. And I would also like to ask all first responders, if you would please stand. That would be anybody that might be emergency public safety, law enforcement, fire, emergency response, and emergency medical. Anybody? Whoa, who do you have any partnerships tonight? We got a nurse? There's a nurse. All right. We're going to have the installation of the Clark County Republican Women Officers. So Susan Hutchison is going to install us, and she's going to take the mic and I will follow her lead.
Thank you, Connie Jo. Hi, everybody. Hi. Whoever sent me the names for this installation thought I was much younger and had much younger eyes. So excuse me, but I don't know if I can...
We can help you.
Okay. So first of all, I do want to recognize, before we begin, that Micheline Dunn, did I pronounce that right? Dunn, has passed on to glory. We celebrate her life and also recognize her service. And so let's take a pause, a moment of silence in honor of our friend Micheline. Thank you. First Vice President, Carolyn Crane. Carolyn, would you like to stand up? And we want to thank you. And then Deanna Erickson, who's the treasurer.
She's not here tonight.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that. So we want to recognize you all for what you've done and appreciate you greatly for holding this organization through thick and thin. And now it is our pleasure tonight, and I've been asked to participate in this, so I'm honored. I'm going to read the new officers who are going to be installed, and I'll have them come to the front. The president, of course, Connie Jo Freeman. We've met Connie. Jesser. Second Vice President, Liz Pike. Secretary, Anna Miller. And Treasurer, Suzanne Gerhardt. Looks like we've got a basketball team up here. So they have accepted the nomination and have been elected to these leadership positions. And they have signified their willingness to serve the core mission of the Clark County Republican Women. It will be their responsibility to lead the CCRW during their specified terms and to create an atmosphere where we can serve Clark County Republicans. So thank you all for your service, even before it's begun. Now, I would like to hand the gavel over to the president, Connie Jo Freeman. Connie. And Connie Jo, this organization was organized with a core mission. In order that we not forget the common purpose, I ask you all to follow along silently while I read aloud the CCRW mission statement. And it's very good. To promote an informed electorate through political education. To increase the effectiveness of women in the cause of good government by electing strong Republican women to public office and effective political participation in those roles. To facilitate cooperation among Republican women's clubs. To foster loyalty to the Republican Party and to promote its ideals. To support the objectives and policies of the Republican National Committee, the Republican State Central Committee, and the Clark County Republican Party. And finally, to work for the election of the Republican Party's nominees. Are all of you willing to stand for this mission statement? Yes. All right. I understand that this organization has grown in the last 4 months from a handful to over 60. And there is a belief that you'll be over 100 members in no time. So I want to commend the work
I've been dropping your name all night.
Did you join tonight? No. So did I.
There we go. We should be in these together.
And then we're going to tell them how they feel when they send out some information. I like to know.
All right, continue eating while I talk. How's that? Is that good? What did my husband say? Out of order! You're not called bouncers. What do you call those for women's club? Here, Sergeant at Arms. Thank you. Well, at this moment, I would like to call this meeting to order. January 12, 2017 meeting of Clark County Republican Women. Anna, how are you going to take notes when you're chewing over there? How will this happen? You know what? It's being videotaped.
There you go.
Well, we only have a limited amount of business, and that's going to be towards the end. I just want to say a few words. Some of you don't know me. Some of you know me way too well. But I want to say it with all sincerity. I accept the duty that comes with this responsibility as president.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled to have this board that you just saw, go-getters, wild, crazy women that make things happen, like this dinner tonight, and getting a spokesperson on our behalf to come from Seattle down here for us. That's the kind of things that happen in our board meetings when we first met in November. All this happened since November, so that's pretty amazing. Well, you know, we all have different kinds of motivations, and as Susan read our statement, the very first bullet point is about educating the electorate, educating the voters. And just call it the teacher in me or something, but that is one of my big passions. I've been studying the Founding Fathers, I've been studying folks like David Barton from Wall Builders, who is an amazing man that has a collection of unbelievable numbers of original documents. He's on the radio every day. If you want to hear something fun, you need to listen to Wall Builders. He's got a podcast. Anyways, while listening to him and going through the Constitution class that they offered, I ran across an amazing quote. And this is what it says. Oh, and by the way, it's written by the founding father, John Jay. John Jay was one of the authors of the Federalist Papers. He was the original Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And this is what he had to say. Every member of the state ought diligently to read and to study the Constitution. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be better prepared to defend and assert them. So So let's just break that down real quick. It says every member. That's you and that's me. That's your neighbor. That's your adult children. Every member, every voter ought to what? Diligently read and study the Constitution. May I add, we should read it through the eyes of its original intent. Why? Why do we need to read and study the Constitution? So we know our rights. If you know your rights, you'll recognize that they're violated. If you don't know your rights, you have no idea that your freedoms have been taken away. Well, Clark County Republican women have a goal to educate. A lot of you know the Constitution. You know, we've read it, but do we know it? That's the question. So we have goals, have a Constitution class. I know Liz Pike wants to teach people how to, what were your ideas again, Liz? Young women campaign school, to be campaign managers. And that's amazing. Not to mention, at your farm, what were you going to do? Keep going. Keep going. It's all part of it. She's going to teach some things from her ranch. I love that part. Then it says to be better prepared to defend and assert. Now, okay, for you guys, some of you women, you like football? Yeah. Football season, what's happening February 3rd? Something called the Super Bowl. Okay, well, this quote reminded me of football because it says you have to be prepared to defend and assert. Well, defend, that's like offense. You know offense. Make sure the other guy doesn't score. And you have to assert, or you have to, did I say offense just a second ago? Yeah. When you hear yourself say things after it's too late, pull it back. Defense, so your opponent can't score. We play offense, and then we can score. How did we do in the 2016 election? Did we score? Yeah. We the people, the grassroots, the electorate, must be diligent, to be educated, to know our rights. One more thought. John Quincy Adams, he said, the connection between the people and their government is a connection of duties as well as rights. Oh, so with those rights comes duties. I'm kind of preaching to the choir because everyone here understands their duty. But I just wanted to share it. With every right comes a commiserate, that's a funny word, commensurate responsibility. So understand your rights, understand your duties. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm passionate about education, so I thought I would start now by sharing Founding Fathers' quotes. All right? Let's see what else. Let's go. Ms. Pike, are you ready? We're going to have an introduction. All right. Great things.
Thank you, President Joe Freeman. Something cosmic is going on in the world. Is this too loud? Everybody hear me? No, it's not loud enough. So the 5-year drought in California is over. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. A great man named Dino Rossi is now a member of the Washington State Legislature again. And it's cool to be Republican. I love that people are coming back to the party. At the national level, at the state level, and at the county level. I love that we are uniting Americans around common sense solutions and ideas. And that is how we continue our movement that we have made this year already, or 2016. And of course, Donald Trump for president. We have every right to be hopeful about the future. Yes. And one of the things that I love the most is the hopefulness that I have right here in the state of Washington. And I'm going to put
Chairman Hutchison a little bit on the spot here, and I warned her though. I have a dream that Susan Hutchison is going to be the next governor of the great state of Washington. Susan Hutchison is best known in Western Washington as a distinguished TV news anchor, serving the Puget Sound region as a trusted broadcaster and communicator and leader for more than 3 decades. For much of her career at Cairo TV, she anchored the highest-rated newscast in Seattle, receiving numerous awards, including 5 Emmys, for producing, writing, and reporting news and documentaries. For 10 years, Susan was executive director of the Charles and Lisa Simone Fund for Arts and Sciences, where she led the philanthropic foundation in granting $100 million to art organizations, science programs, and educational institutions. Susan has been a devoted volunteer with numerous and diverse nonprofit organizations. President George W. Bush appointed her to the board of the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. She just completed her term as chair of the Young Life and is a member of the board of Seattle Art Museum. In the past, she has served on the boards of Children's Hospital, Salvation Army, Seattle Symphony as chair, Krista World Concern as chair, and Discovery Institute. As the daughter of an Air Force Lieutenant General and wife of a U.S. Marine Corps Colonel activated for the Iraq War, Susan's patriotism runs deep. I can go on and on and on about Chairman Susan Hutchison's prestigious and wonderful career, and it's just beginning. And I'll tell you something, this is probably the highest honor of my year, is to introduce to you Chairman Susan Hutchison.
I appreciate it so much, and Representative Liz Pike is a legend in Clark County and a legend in Olympia, and what a treat to be asked by her to come and speak to what is the sort of inaugural dinner of this organization that is being revitalized. And so I want to thank each and every one of you women in this room for becoming members and for committing to your mission statement. I like to say about the Republican Party that we're a lot like Lake Wobegon. The women are strong and the men are good looking. And so I'm really delighted to see all of the men in the room as well. So thank you for supporting your spouses and your friends and being here. And my husband, Andy, decided he would drive me down here. I was going to come alone, and he decided to drive me down, and we did have a glorious drive today. I mean, I-5 is so beautiful on a beautiful day as you go past Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, and then, if you get far enough south, you can see Mount Hood. And so, what a beautiful place to live. I live in Seattle, which is a great city, and I live in the dark underbelly of Seattle, the University District. And I've managed to live there for 35 years. And it's a place I like to say free speech is not free. Because if I want to put a bumper sticker on my car, I've got to decide what damage I'm willing to pay for to express my free speech rights. And if I want to put a sign in my yard, I've got to expect that there could be vandalism on my house. How much does that cost? Is it worth it to me? Well, for the first time in the more than 35 years I've lived in this neighborhood, I put signs up this year. I like parking strips. I think the chairman of the Washington State Republican Party doesn't put up signs. Who will? So I put up, the Bill Bryant and the Kim Wyman and all these statewide, and then I put up
Susan Hutchison.
Trump Pence. My bling here says Trump Pence. So we have a very civilized neighbor that we've known for well over 30 years. A sophisticated man who owns a company, and he brought his company truck home and he parked it. He lives, 4 houses down, but he parked it on my parking strip so you couldn't see any of our signs. And I thought, this is really passive aggressive. And somebody said, no, it's just aggressive. I thought, yeah, that's true. But he could have at least just argued with me instead of doing that. But anyway, that's the atmosphere we have in Seattle. And it's tough. It's really tough. And I kept saying throughout the entire election season, and Joel knows this, because Joel, sitting here, Joel Nava, was one of the few, actually, he was the only Trump delegate to the National Convention out of state of Washington. And of course, we heard about him, we thought, I wonder what he's like. And we met him, and he's just such a happy soul, and he's such a great guy, and we just loved spending a week with Joel. So I'm so glad you were there, Joel.
Thank you for your commitment, Susan. You had many opportunities to throw Trump under the bus, and you never did. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I think every family had discussions. Our team at the state party, we have 8 in the office, and when we started out with 17 candidates, our office was a lot like a lot of families. Everybody had a different favorite candidate. And slowly they would step out, and then that person would have to pick, for whom they had devoted themselves to cheering on one of those candidates, then would have to move to a different candidate. And as we got closer and closer, we just didn't know what we were going to do about Donald Trump. Now, I know that some of you were early adopters, but it took a lot of people a lot of time to accept Donald Trump. But I'll tell you what happened to me. I began to listen to his supporters. And one of the most significant, since I am a military person with my dad and my husband, and now my son is at Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia, just started on Saturday, less than a week ago. And if all goes well in 10 weeks, he will be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. So I am at a dinner, and I'm sitting next to the wife of Oz Geist. Now, for those of you who watched 13 Hours, the movie about Benghazi, you know that Oz Geist is one of the few that survived that terrible night. And his wife, when he was in the Marine Corps, of course, probably raised their kids by herself, because he was always off. And we had this wonderful conversation about all subjects, and I just thought, you are so admirable. He worked for the CIA. He had retired from the Marine Corps, and he worked for the CIA in Benghazi. And I just enjoyed her so much. He was a speaker that night. And at the end of the conversation, we turned to politics. And she said, well, I've got my candidate. And I said, you do? Who would that be? I thought, anybody you like, I like. And she said, Donald Trump. And my heart kind of sank. And I said, why? And she said, because he's going to get ISIS and fix our economy. And with those 2 succinct statements, fix ISIS and get ISIS and fix the economy, I started quoting her. I didn't give her attribution. I would just, the Seattle Times would say, well, why do you think Donald Trump is now your candidate? And I'd say, because he's going to get ISIS and fix the economy. Amen. It was like the perfect talking points. But I had met Oz Geist's wife, Crystal, several months before he became our nominee. But I'll tell you what happened to me in Cleveland. I would ask every person I ran into in the service professions how they felt about all those Republicans being in the city of Cleveland.
And I was ready for any answer. You know, I'm an old-time reporter. You just ask the question and listen to the answer. And I love the one that came from an Uber driver. And he said, oh, I love it. And I love Donald Trump. And I said, you do? Why? And he said, because she is so vicious. Only he can beat her.
That's right.
And I thought to myself, that again, in simple terms, explains why the people of this country who made Donald Trump our nominee were so happy. They got it before all of the sophisticated Republicans got it. They got it before all of these former elected officials in Washington State got it. They got it before some of our candidates who were running for office on the same ticket got it. And I love the voters. You know, when all else fails, fall back on the people. The people know. And that's one of the beautiful things about being chairman of the state party is my style is to allow everyone to speak, but the majority rules. Everybody can express their opinion. Everybody can try to win their point. But at the end, when all of the points are made, you take a vote, and majority rules. And the majority of Republicans picked Donald Trump.
Yes.
The reason I love this pin that says Trump Pence is because another thing I love to say, if anybody is concerned about Donald Trump, I say, look at the people he surrounds himself with. Look at the person he chose as his vice president. And you know, I have to say about Mike Pence, he is a gambler. Can you imagine, he gave up a safe position as governor. He had to give it up in order to run. Because he was up for election, and he knew that if this ticket lost, he's done. And he got on board, and what a gift he is to the United States of America. I love that man. I really love Donald Trump. I've spent some time with him, and I have to tell you, the first time I met him, he came to Washington State, the first public appearance he made after becoming the nominee, the presumptive nominee, when Kasich dropped out. He came to Washington State to Spokane, and I flew over to help greet him. And I waited to the end of the line so that I could have a little time with him. And I shook his hand, I explained who I was, and immediately, now I don't know how many of you have been around politicians, but politicians tend to what we call glad hand, which is, oh hi, how are you? Nice to see you. How's the weather? You know, that kind of thing. And then they move you along because they've got to shake 100 more people's hands. So Donald Trump, the first thing he says to me is, can we win? That's all he says, can we win? And I said, with you we can win. And he says, okay, what are you going to be doing in Washington State? And I began to answer that question. And I found it so stimulating that the fellow who is our nominee for president is asking me questions. It was so respectful of him first, and then second, it was inspiring to me because I could tell he was listening. The next time I met him, it was the exact same thing. We met at a fundraiser down in Los Angeles in one of these beautiful mansions of the, you know, the folks who live in Los Angeles and live in mansions. And we were surrounded by those folks. I mean, there's nothing more glamorous than Hollywood. And yet, when I walked up to him, we had just had our primary, and he had won the night before with 75% of the vote. And I walked up to him and I said, congratulations, you won 75% in our primary. And you know what he did? He immediately said, can I win in Washington State? And then that followed, can I win in Oregon? What about California? Can I win in Oregon? I mean, in California. And so we began this conversation. Why can't I win in Oregon, was his question. And I said, because you always have to have a great candidate. That's where it starts, but you also have to have an organization. And unfortunately, your neighbor to the south has no Republican organization to speak of. And And Washington State's organization, thanks to people like you, and I want to shout out to Kenny Smith. Kenny, raise your hand. A few years through thick and thin. And I also want to commend David Galatly. Did I say, is it Galatly or Galatly? Yeah. Okay, thank you for stepping up. And Katya Delavar is your county's state committee woman, and she's already served the term, and we're going to be welcoming her back in a couple of weeks to the newly organized state party. So you all have got some extraordinary people who have served here. I also want to commend Carolyn Crane once again for Carolyn's hard work through a lot of campaigns. Nobody works harder than Carolyn. So Carolyn, thank you. Okay, so next week is the inauguration. And of course, the press was in my office today asking me what I expect. And of course, I smile and I say I expect a lot of hurry up and wait. I expect long lines. I expect a lot of people. And all I care about is that my shoes are comfortable, because we are going to be walking and walking and walking. That's just the way it is. My husband and I grew up in Washington, D.C., and we were together our first month of marriage on the 4th of July, where 1 million people were on the mall for that celebration. I remember it well. We did a lot of walking, didn't we, honey? But I want to tell you something else going on. A couple days before we took our Christmas break at the state party, a woman walks in. She was cute. She had little bangs and curly hair, and she had a sweet voice. And she came in and she said, "I would like to volunteer for the party." And we said, "Really? Well, we're about to shut down for the Christmas break, but what is it you'd like to do?" "Well, I want to do outreach. I want to do outreach." And we said, "Well, that's great, but Christmas is coming. Can you wait until January?" "Well, I really want to do outreach." And so then she began to ask questions about what we're doing for the inauguration. And we said, well, a few of us are going to be at the inauguration, but otherwise there'll probably be an inauguration watching party, and that will be handled by King County GOP. So we gave her King County GOP's number. And when I was standing there next to her, I noticed she was visibly shaking. And I thought, volunteering for the state Republican Party ain't that nerve-wracking. Something's going on here. And the moment she walked out the door, I said to my team, we're going to lock the door. Something is not right here. And we called over to King County GOP and we said, we just gave a phone number to someone and we're nervous about it. And she said, she already called. And the name she gave me, she had told us her name was Jen. The name she gave King County was Jen Dale. D-A-L-E. But the name on the caller ID was different. So we have a crack staff and they can find out anything about everybody if they take the time. And so we researched her, and guess what? She's a hard left community organizer.
Yes.
Graduate of Yale, smart woman, but she's organizing to disrupt inauguration. And that's why she was asking questions. And so we decided to call the police. Because when somebody twice gives you the wrong identity, it generally means they're up to no good. And so we called the Bellevue police, and they came to the office, and we gave them the information we had, and we showed her dossier that's online, and all the things she's involved in. And then I said, you know what? About a week later, I said, I think we need to call the FBI. So we called the local FBI, and I asked that we get the number for to report anyone we are suspicious about, and I ended up on the phone at the national reporting number for the FBI outside of Washington, D.C., and they took down, I'll run into Jen Dale and say to her, Jen, how are you? Bellevue Police has everything on you. So does the FBI here, and so does the FBI want you to know. But you know what they said to us? They said, our watch list is long. And it just sort of, at every step, everybody was so conscious, these authorities were so conscious of what was going on, that I feel very secure. I know there is going to be mischief in Washington, D.C. I know there's a website you could go to. It says Disrupt J20, and J is for January. And on that website is the whole list of all the things they're doing in all the cities, and including how they plan to shut down Washington, D.C. But as Joel knows from Cleveland, that was predicted in Cleveland and nothing happened. But the reason why, folks, is that those of us on the street, all we notice is metal detectors. But what's really going on is there are snipers on the roof. And there are so many plainclothes police officers in and among us. I'm not at all concerned. I know Washington, D.C. will have it under control, and we will have our duly elected president and vice president inaugurated next Friday. You know, I know you all know this, but I just want to affirm that, you know, it wasn't the economy, stupid, as they like to say. It really wasn't. That was just a symptom. What it really was is what we all knew it was. It was deep in our gut. We knew that America was fundamentally changing, just as Barack Obama intended it to. That we were headed in a direction that those of us who grown up in America, whether we're teenagers or 90 years old, we know that America was becoming something that it had never been and should never be. And in our hearts and our guts, we knew that Hillary Clinton was going to continue that path until our country would be unrecognizable to the next generation. And what I love is that folks like you and your neighbors and your friends throughout America, and even in traditionally democratic areas, decided that they had had enough. And that's what this election was all about. So I don't know about you, but in the days leading up to the election, maybe it started about Friday, I would wake up in the morning and I would remember what I did, what my job was, what date it was, what was happening in the world, and my stomach would just go into knots. And I would think, in just a few more days, we've got that election. I want it to be over, and yet I so dread what could happen. And the next day I would wake up and it would be the same. And the anxiety that overwhelmed me, and when I've talked about this in various groups, I get so many nodding heads because people remember what it felt like to have this overwhelming dread for a future that we just couldn't stomach if Hillary Clinton won. And remember, everyone was saying she was going to win. All of the pundits, all of the polls, everybody thought she was going to win. Well, every time I got interviewed by the press, I had said, Donald Trump is going to win. And I just kept thinking about Oz Geist's wife and how many people she represented. And the other thing was, Andy and I were in Scotland for the Scotland vote. Now, the Scotland vote preceded the Brexit vote. But it was that vote where they were going to decide whether to break from the United Kingdom, from Great Britain. For the first time in hundreds of years, they would not be part of that United Kingdom. And I remember being there and feeling so deeply sad because all the polls said they were going to vote yes to break from England, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. They were all going to vote to do that. That's what the polls were saying. But this is what happened. Remember, I love to ask questions of people, just regular folks. So I'm at a convenience store, and I said, so, big vote tomorrow. How are you going to vote? And the gal hung her head, and she said, I haven't made up my mind. And I thought to myself, you haven't made up your mind? It's the only story in the whole country right now. In fact, the billboards, the people who wanted to stay a part of the Great Britain had put up billboards, and they simply said, no, thank you. Isn't that dear? I mean, isn't that so British? No, thank you. Well, the next day was election day, and Andy and I stayed up late that night for the first returns from the little counties, because it didn't take very long for those to be voted or to be counted. And that came after midnight, and they were voting to stay as part of the United Kingdom. And our spirits lifted, and we got so excited, and we stayed up hours that night waiting. I finally went to bed, and Andy woke me up in the morning and said, it went down. They're not breaking away. And all of us, I think Americans all wanted a United Kingdom. And we didn't want it to break up. That was so different than the way we felt about the Brexit vote. Remember that vote that came along, and again, that was going to happen, would not happen. The Brits definitely didn't have the nerve to break from the EU. And remember how we felt in our gut? We wanted so badly for them to break from the EU. It was like, please vote for freedom. And yet the polls and the pundits all said that the Brits didn't have the nerve. And oh, was that pure joy watching those returns coming in that night as we watched them vote for freedom? And you began to say, you know what? Maybe the world isn't upside down. Maybe it's not, but again, the polls were wrong. And so all through the season, I kept saying the polls are wrong by 5%. The polls are wrong by 5%. I'm sure of it. They've got to be wrong by 5%. Well, she was ahead by almost 5%. So I was just convinced that there was going to be enough of a margin that he was going to squeak through. You know, or maybe you don't, but I was so accosted by the Seattle Times for not breaking from Donald Trump that they did an editorial demanding I step down as chairman of the state party. And a number of newspapers picked it up around the state and also demanded that I step down. Now, good old Dino Rossi had a great comment to me. He said, you know, when my dad was teaching me how to play pool, he said, let me give you some advice, son. Never listen to your opponent's advice because they don't have your best interests at heart. So he thought that was just great. When the Seattle Times demands that the state Republican chairman step down, that's an opponent, and they don't have our best interests at heart.
That's right.
So let's get back to election week. As each day passed, as we got closer and closer, and the morning of election day, I woke up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, this is the day. And I tossed and turned, finally fell back to sleep, and I woke up. It was 6:30, and I looked out my window, and it was the most glorious sunrise I think I've seen in years. If you saw it that morning, it was really red and colorful. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling of hope, and then I remembered today is election day. And I did what so many of us had been doing for days. Whenever that gripping fear overwhelmed us, I just prayed. And as I lay there, I began to think, and I think this was just a gift from God to assure me and give me hope that morning, that the silent prayers, this is exactly the message, the silent prayers of the faithful in America and around the world, because you all who travel know people from China all the way around the globe look to America with hope. The silent prayers of the faithful in America and around the world are a roar in heaven. And I tell you, that thought, and I thought of a roar like a huge wave pounding, the roar of the surf. And I thought of the roar of a lion, like Aslan, for those of you who love the Narnia Tales by C.S. Lewis. And I thought, our silent prayers, everybody's praying silently, but they are being heard in heaven. God will hear our prayers. So as I'm going out the door, I'm thinking, I had been working through the Psalms, and I thought, I really don't have time to read the next Psalm, but I'll just pray one more time in front of the open Bible. And I glanced down and I was on Psalm 40. And you know what Psalm 40 says? I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined his ear to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the miry pit, out of the clay. I felt like, oh, if that doesn't describe the way I felt for days leading up to that election. He heard my cry. I go to work, and your counterparts in Snohomish County, their leader sends me an email. She said, I believe God has heard our cry. She used those exact words from Psalm 40. And then later in the week, this wonderful woman I see on Fox Business News, she's African American, just happy soul, strong believer, and she says, when being interviewed, you know, God heard our prayers. And then she stopped and she hesitated a moment, and she said, our silent prayers. And I thought, yes, she's talking to me. She's affirming what I know is true. God heard our prayers. So, let's go to the evening. And we've got Fox on. And Britt Hume says, well, all you have to do is do the math. We've got this higher than ever turnout of Hispanics, and the Hispanics are going for Hillary Clinton. And we've got this higher than ever turnout of women voters, and they're going for Hillary Clinton. Just do the math. She's won this election. And this was before the polls had closed. And that dread came over me again. And I claimed it. God heard our cry. And then we went into the big Hyatt Ballroom in Bellevue, where we had just opened it up, put up gigantic screens, American flags, invited all the press against the back wall on their risers and their TV cameras, and people were pouring in. And we waited. And Florida was tough. We knew we had to win Florida, remember? We didn't win Florida, it was over. That was one of the first ones, and she was winning Florida. And then somebody came up to me and said, the panhandle has not been counted yet. And the panhandle is all for Trump. Amen. And sure enough, I got a text from the RNC, a friend inside the Republican National Committee, and he said, pray for Florida. And sure enough, we won Florida. And then one of these things happened, a signal. Virginia was supposed to be way over for Hillary. Maybe win it, she would win it by 12 points, remember? And they couldn't call Virginia. It was too close to call. That was a great indicator. And then we got North Carolina. We knew we needed North Carolina, we got North Carolina. Then we got Ohio. That's right. We didn't get Virginia, but Virginia was an indicator. And then I had staff, and they were in the next room over, and I told them, you know, just keep me posted, keep sending out messages, whatever you're seeing. And our very brilliant, very nerdy researcher had told me earlier in the evening, he said, my sources are good. You need to trust me. They're not the same sources that the networks use, but I trust them. So I will tell you what they are predicting. You just need to know that they're good sources. So he's deep in the, drilled down into the internet to get this information. And he comes out and he leans into my ear And it's about 7:30 at night our time. About 10:30 on the East Coast. And he says, we're going to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And I looked at him and I said, and we won. And he said, we won. And so, I can't tell you how shocking it was to win Wisconsin. It was truly shocking. What a gift to our RNC chairman, Cranes Priebus. An old Wisconsin boy who helped get Scott Walker elected and was our chairman through this very, very difficult year. So, you all know that finally the networks admitted it. It took them so long. And of course, people said great entertainment was moving from one station to another. Watching Britt Hume, who had made that prediction, just looked like he was sick to his stomach. Megan Kelly was so angry she didn't know what to do. And then, of course, on the other stations, they just foamed at the mouth. So it was a great night. And what was really hilarious was all the Seattle media had sent their second stringers to our party. And I thought, isn't this great? These second stringers got the story of the decade. So, I just want to say, thank God. You know, that's sort of a phrase you use and you don't know if people mean it or not. I really mean it. God heard our cry. We have a chance to turn America back. And remember the people that Donald Trump surrounds himself with. And this is what you argue with your friends who are not too keen on Mr. Trump. Just say, look at the people he surrounds himself with. I got to tell you, with a son going into the Marine Corps and all of you who have loved ones serving in the military throughout the world, don't you love that our Secretary of Defense is this incredible man, General Mattis? Yes. And Marines, the best tears to your eyes. When Donald Trump appointed General Mattis, I said, the world is turning right side up again. Finally. Yes. I just want to leave you with a thought. The Republican Party is the party that sets people free. That has been our charter from the very beginning. It was the Republican Party that formed from the Abolitionist Party. Changed their name, elected Abraham Lincoln. Fought a wicked, horrible war that not a single American family was untouched. But we ended that scourge of slavery once and for all, and we set people free.
Yes. Amen.
Many decades later, we set women free by being the party that supported the women's vote. That is something long forgotten, and we should not let anyone forget it. It's in our DNA to uphold women and their rights. That's what we stand for. And then, as the years have gone on, you know, Ronald Reagan in his farewell address, he said, it's like a physics equation. It's so true, you can't deny it. When government grows, freedoms diminish. Yes. When government grows, freedoms diminish. What makes us Republicans is we're small government people. Right. Because it's not that we don't like government. Right. I appreciate every single person in here who's an elected official and serving in our government. It's that we understand that out-of-control government takes away our freedoms. That's right. Yeah. We are the party that sets people free. Think of what's going to happen to our economy with Republicans in charge. And one of the things I like to say, and we've got a school superintendent, Sandra, right here with us. My hat is off to you and your good work. Thank you. What about our kids in the inner cities that have no hope because the Democratic Party repeatedly kowtows to the powerful union bosses who refuse to do any education reform that can lift those kids, the most needy of all, out of that miry pit in their area. We are the ones who set students free, keeping them in school and giving them options and hope. That's what we stand for. Don't ever forget that the Republican Party sets people free. And with that, as we go forward, let's see, today is Thursday, so it's set 8 days away. Let us all, thank God, next Friday, continually, from the moment we wake up in the morning and all day long, and then pray for the safety of our Americans.
Yes.
We believe in peaceful protest. We believe in it. When you go to the White House today, there is a protest outside that fence every single day of the year. Trust me.
Yes.
And that's what we know is the right thing in this country, to allow for a peaceful protest. Violent protest is unacceptable. And so pray that God's hand would be over that city and over all of our cities as they are boiler cakes ready to go. So, with that, I just want to thank you for everything you do. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you. And Liz, keep up the good work and keep growing this great organization.
But Susan did something that deserves some mic hijacking. In our state, it wasn't like super popular to like be a Trump supporter. And you guys might remember a few weeks or something before the election, there was this thing that happened, and Susan had every opportunity to throw Trump under the bus. And I told her this privately, and I want to say this to you publicly. Like I said, it wasn't popular, and even some of our elected officials threw Trump under the bus. But I want to tell you something. Susan Hutchison stood by her nominee.
Yes.
She stood by her nominee, and you have like the most iron spine that I've ever known. Because this woman, she stood by Donald Trump, and I think we need to give her a special round of applause and a special thank you. Thank you very much.
When she was talking about the sunrise, George Washington had a chair, and on the back of his chair there was a sun carved into the back. And the people wondered, is that sun rising or is that sun setting? George Washington knew that the sun was rising upon America. And that's why he had that chair. There you go.
There you go.
Yes, absolutely. And secondly, would you take a moment and talk about a certain dress that you brought with you today?
At the convention, Ivanka Trump spoke, and she wore this beautiful peach-colored, blush-colored dress. You guys have to just put up with us for a moment. All the women in the room get this. And of course, we all thought she was in some designer frock, because that's what we would expect. And it turned out it's her own line.
Yeah.
And so I have brought the very dress. It's sold out immediately, but they're back selling it again. The very dress that she wore, it's a size 6. It is not a skimpy 6. And so it's over in the silent auction, and it is exactly the dress that she wore when she made her speech. It's really pretty. So I hope that you all go over and bid it up, because you know what? The next best thing to having great people in an organization is raising money. So I wanted to donate it to you all so that you could, it's brand new, it's still got the tag on it from Nordstrom. And I wanted you all to have an opportunity to make some money off of it.
Andy and Susan, draw down here. I would like to say they gifted their time to us. Thank you. And she brought a dress to auction off so that we could raise money for our women's club. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So don't you dare be leaving this house until you go by the silent auction. We also have some raffles, but first we have to do a little bit of business, okay? Anna Miller is our secretary. She has a report for the minutes. What would you like to stand and come forward so we can all hear you? Do you have a head count on what we have here tonight? 80 people!
Republicans are a hardy group.
Yes, we are.
Okay, presenting the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was November 10th, 2016. This was our reorganization meeting where our elections took place. And for all of the members, paid members in good standing, I did email this to you about a week and a half ago so that you would have it in your email boxes, and I did mention to you that we would not be providing printed copies. So I assume that your new members, you read the meeting minutes, and now I'm going to turn this back over to our president to have the proper procedure for the minutes.
We have a motion on the floor.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Katia Delavar, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Our secretary is going to write these names down. So Katia was the first. Our first vice president was the second. I'm so bad with names, I go blank. Stacy. See, I came up with it before I heard it. It's all good. All right. All in favor say aye. You must be a voting member. If you join tonight, feel free to vote. Aye. Are there any nays? All right. The motion passes. Treasurer Suzanne Gerhardt, come on up.
Hello, so I don't have a lot to report, but we did get a new bank open at IQ Credit Union. We also have a PayPal account set up, which is why we were able to take debit cards tonight, even despite a few technical difficulties. I don't know what the current balance is at this.
You gotta speak into the mic, honey. We cannot hear you.
Right. The last time I checked, our balance is about $1,500, so that's all I have for tonight.
All right, so we're going to have a motion on the floor.
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Second.
Who's that
I
second?
have a question.
Question on the floor?
Excuse me, yeah. Did the bank accounts get rolled over?
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfectly. Thank you for your assistance.
You got it.
So we had we had a motion by Katia. I didn't see who the second is. Valerie Vance, and she made it after all. I saw your email that you may not make it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, this motion passes. Thank you. All right, excellent. Got some announcements. David Galatly, would you stand up from where you are and loudly tell us about our inauguration party?
On January 20th, 6 p.m., 6 West is a bar, has a huge open floor plan, and so we're doing it there. There's no cover, there'll be donations at the door.
Could you hear him?
6
and Broadway, 6 p.m., January 20th.
Actually, Trump's speech will probably be at 6 p.m., right? 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock, so...
We'll be having it live and we'll replay the actual screening.
Cool.
Okay, they got it all figured out.
It's on my Facebook page too.
It's on whose Facebook
The
page?
Clark County Republican Party.
Clark County Republican Party's Facebook page. If you haven't liked it, like them. Or do it. March 24. You need to notice that we have our dinner meetings every other month. This is January, which is an odd number. January is the first month. Every odd month, we're going to have a dinner meeting. So March 24th, get it on your calendar, and we will be getting emails out. Keep watching the Facebook. Don't you love social media? Wow. We used to have to all do this all through snail mail. What next? Membership forms. Membership forms are on your table. Anybody join here tonight for the first time? Let me see you. I see that hand. Yes. Anna wants to say something.
I just want to say that membership
on the registration table.
I beg your pardon, the membership forms are on the registration table. Will our registrars be going back? Okay, so you can still sign up and realize that every month when it comes to dinner, you get $5 off. So 5 times 6 is 30 bucks. So hey, your membership is free. There you go. And committees, please notice on your table, we have standing committees. There, Anna's holding them up right there for you. We have standing committees. Now that's where the work gets done. You know, this table decorations, the ideas, the themes. We have a chaplain, which is going to lead a prayer committee if you are inclined to pray. Some of us don't pray silently. And all kinds of committees. It's on that list. So take a look. What we want you to do is see what's available. If you come up with an idea that's not on that standing list, that doesn't mean you can't turn that little form over and add your ideas. You've got the talent, you've got the creativity, and so therefore, we would invite you to add that to it. So fill those forms out, we'll gather them up, and then we will be in touch with you, and we will begin forming committees. We've got a lot of groundwork to do, and we're going to have fun doing it. What's next? Come on up. We have Katya Delvar. I'd like to talk to you about youth mentorship programs.
So the women have joined here. There are always clubs for adults, and I just thought if you have anybody between the ages of 15 and 21 who would like to serve in the youth mentorship program of the Clark County Republican Party, you can sign them up and they get a nice letter for the number of hours that they have served. And it's awesome for their dissertations, for their resume, anything that they need to use it for, and we have a great program for that with a letterhead. So please have your youth get in touch with me at the Clark County Republican Party headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you. Love our youth. All right. For the good of the order, does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Raise your hand. Carolyn?
When you're forming these committees, one thing that we should know is that these committees are part of the WFRW program.
What does WFRW stand for?
Washington Federation of Republican Women.
We are part of the
ones
Washington
that chartered this organization.
And then there's a federal one also.
Right. The WFRW keeps track of our hours. So if they're not paid, is a rule, they cannot be paid for hours. But if you're doing something that's in one of those committees, whether it be volunteering at school or helping veterans or knocking on doors or running a phone bank or doing something political, look at your list of groups, pick your passion, jump on it, set up a spreadsheet and track it. Turn it in and put us on the map. I know that my tracking sheet from this last year has 3,961 hours on it of volunteer work. Whether it be political, or handing out food, or sleeping bags, or helping veterans. It all counts, put it in the category, submit it, and put us on the map.
There you go. Thank you. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay, what's happening next Friday night? What? Inauguration party. What's happening March 24th? Another dinner party. And you know what it's like. She's second vice president. She's in charge of getting speakers. How'd she do the first time around? To be announced. She has a list that she's working off. She's like eliminating people. I need those people. Do you have any idea yet? Okay, it is time for some raffles, I believe. Oh, it's coming. Come on up. Yes, the candles on the table. Aren't they lovely? And thank you, Anna. She has gone to lots of effort to make this a beautiful table. She's done the decorations, so we appreciate it. The candles are yours to take home or to share with friends.
Thank you. interesting microphone here. Do my best. Actually, I would like to invite Valerie Vance to come up for just a moment here and explain our raffle items.
I'm excited. Thank you so much. In December, I came to my first meeting, and I was a member of the silent majority. There's a lot of people that still wish I were. But it is like putting toothpaste back in the tube. It doesn't happen. So I was really blessed because my raffle number was drawn, and it was a basket that Liz Pike made. It had like her own jelly in it. Like I took it home and I said, you can't open it. I mean, what's gone? It's gone. You know? So I said to the ladies before I left, I want to do something with this basket so Liz Pike basket never dies. So what I did was I remade the basket, and Liz called it the Let's Make America Great basket. We've done that. So now this is the Liz Pike Celebration basket. You notice? Front and center. This is champagne and caviar and smoked oysters and smoked clams and some cherries that put into the champagne with some crackers. My challenge is that whoever wins this basket cannot let the Liz Pike basket die. So you get to rename it. You can put your little sign on it and bring her face again if you'd like. But that would be my challenge to my fellow members, and as a member of the non-silent majority, let's have a raffle.
This is a very well put together basket. I know does everyone have a white raffle ticket? Yes. Okay. Summer, here. This is my daughter, Summer Rose. The future of Clark County. Since it's a Liz Pike basket, we're going to have Liz Pike do the drawing. We have 8320130.
What? What is that?
Did you leave her? Oh, she's going?
Gotta be present.
Going? Going? Gone. Next one.
That'll teach her to look at her glasses.
Good job, Liz. She didn't even peek.
Very much.
We have 8320056.
I'm hijacking the mic. David Galatly's wife is pregnant. They're due any minute now. So make sure you pray for them, and they're ready to go. Do you know? Yeah.
It's a boy. Congratulations. Let us know. Get that Facebook out quickly.
All right, did everyone have an opportunity to bid on our silent auction items? Anybody that would like to make a bid? All right, Alexis? It's another one of my daughters, Alexis.
Oh my God.
In this basket, we have a $50 Red Lobster gift card, a bottle of red wine, a beautiful candle, and some chocolates. We're calling this our Sweetheart Basket. So we have actually
The highest bidder is Valerie Mason.
There you go.
Every meeting, she wins. All right, Avalon. This is my daughter. My daughters are also members of the Clark County Republican Club. Multi-generational, we are a party united, so we appreciate their help. This basket, we have a beautiful Liz Pike sticker on the front. Some wine and some wonderful lotion and some chocolate. This goes to Margie Corsi. All right, for the finale, the gorgeous Ivanka Trump dress. Again, say thank you. Susan left, but this is such a generous donation, and what a tribute to our president-elect. And I would like to say that the winner of this dress is Jeannie Hicks. And I do want to thank our volunteer, Michelle Watkins. She has a huge help in the back. And also Tasha. All right, I think that that wraps up my portion. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand it back over to
Somebody left their cute grandson or little boy, which would that be? It's another kid. What about the tickets here? You want these too? All right. Well, I do declare this meeting adjourned.